the butcher man will have a fag in his mouth.
Nice.
And then
Okay.
shirtless, just apron. And then the apron are absolutely filthy. And then, have the cleavers like, which part do you want, babe? And then slap it down. You bring in either the Chinese, the Indian, or the Jews.
Okay.
So
that was the decision they made.
Yes.
But surely they must have also just looked at your experience and CV and gone past the nationality.
they haven't.
Surely.
They haven't. If I don't cheer myself up, I would have either turned into an alcoholic or something else.
Welcome back to the ChefJKP Podcast. And on the show today, we have the one and only Peggy Lee, who is the managing partner of SPS Affinity. Peggy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, before we get on to all the managerial things, first things first. First or favorite ever childhood food memory?
Oh, it's hard. It's very hard. I said Chinese because we eat everything other than tables, chairs, cars, and aeroplane. It has to be fried rice. It's such a classic that, when you have nothing to eat at home, you see rice. Yes, here you go, fried rice. And fried rice can be done in so many different versions. Obviously, we don't go into the Uncle Roger version with Jamie and all sorts.
We don't want to talk about Uncle Roger here.
He's a legend. Legend.
Okay, so then, obviously, growing up, what were sort of the types of food that you were introduced to as a child?
I think it needs to give you a little bit of where my family background comes from. I think that would be the easiest thing for you to understand how much of a whirlwind there is. So it all started from my parents, obviously. My mom is the second batch of Hong Kong female police in Hong Kong. So Hong Kong only started a female police in the 70s. And they only started to recruit them sort of around like early, mid 70s. So she's the second batch of cadets.
Wow.
And it's very odd in that extent. A lot of people in those days, you can call it Hong Kong is one of those places where police kind of like a licensed thug in that extent. So therefore, and also the police station that she first stationed at. So that police station is called Yau Ma Tei. And reason why that place is so famous is the famous Temple Street of Hong Kong is actually within that circumference. So you can imagine all the hustle, the bustle from the street food to the markets and everything else. And that's just like, you literally walk around the street and you won't go hungry. This is like, you can pick up like, a skewer of fish balls here, a bowl of noodle there, a congee here, and whatever else.
Wow.
So that's pretty much one of those where childhood memories has been everything on the street. It's like, if mom don't want to cook, which she actually doesn't really have that much time to cook, this is where, she just give you like 10 or 20 bucks and you just like run around the street and get your dinner done. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
So that must have been quite incredible, sort of seeing so many things as a kid, bustle, obviously your mum being in what she did, the street food, it's quite phenomenal.
It is, but also in the extent is obviously, when people look at travel program, wet market, the ones that we see nowadays is already, I would say, the more clinically dumbed down version.
Okay, so let's talk about the raw version. Explain to me, if I was to see back then the raw version, what sort of things would I be privy to?
So basically, okay, you have the butcher. So the butcher would have like, half a slab of pig hang and then the butcher man will have a fag in his mouth.
Nice.
And then
Okay.
shirtless, just apron, and then the apron are absolutely filthy, and then have the cleavers like, which part do you want, babe? And then slap it down. So you have that. And then you have the fishmongers, which obviously, us Chinese will like everything live. So you just basically pick it out and the guy literally, got everything done. Then next door, you have the poultry guy, which have cages of geese, duck, chicken, and you pick them out. So, like when they're live chicken, how do you know whether that chicken is meaty? Does it have too much fat layer, etc.? So then I was then taught, okay, you pick up the two wings, flip the bird over, blow it into the feather so you get to see the skin. And then from there, if you see specks of yellow and blah, blah, blah near the butt area, meaning-wise that the bird is too fatty, pick another one, that sort of thing. And Chinese is so much to the extent that, there are these chicken that, have not laid eggs before, so taste tastier. And then therefore they're used for other dishes. And then the ones who have laid eggs before is for other dishes. So, they have, and you actually learn all these trick of the trade just going to the wet market, which no one normally would tell you.
So how old were you when you started to get
roam around the wet market?
Yeah. So because also I think from a parent's perspective, for me, I feel something like that is extremely, extremely important, because I feel nowadays that
it's too clinical.
That food education doesn't sort of come into play. And I'm not saying every single parent does that, but I feel that sort of 60% of kids these days don't necessarily have.
They see it on the fridge packet.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I see thighs.
They don't see that sort of food knowledge.
No, they don't.
So at that time, was it just fun for you to learn about all of these sorts of things?
No, it wasn't. It's just kind of because my mom says something like this. My grandma also. So So
it's ingrained in the culture.
Yeah. So you kind of remember all these things, and also at that time because it's still the early 80s of Hong Kong, so China hasn't quite opened. So whenever my grandma needs to go up to China to visit her relatives, it's like we literally have to hurry everything to them. Like it's like nowadays when you see the Filipinos, I'm sure you see them. It's like they would put bars of soaps and shampoo into the luggage, and you kind of always ask the question, do they not sell that sort of thing in Philippines? Why would you need to buy so much? And they say, no, it doesn't. It's not the same. But at that time in China, generally they don't have it. So then we become like the human luggager or whatever you want to call it. The stuff up with us.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is where the fun part comes in.
Wow. So then, obviously, because I'm just trying to think, like, you must have seen so much stuff.
I've seen so much stuff because obviously with the wet market in China is a complete different ball game than the ones of Hong Kong. And then it's just, I think Asia, because of obviously gone through all the so-called trials and tribulations post-World War II, how the way they pick themselves up, it evolved. So the wet market almost evolved with the situation club. So if you look at nowadays, the evolution of hawker market and how now that, we starting to see the glorified version, which is timeout market, to cloud kitchen. So to me as an Asian, cloud kitchen, hawker market, same. Because ultimately speaking is, does it cook the food? Is it in that golden formula where it's not more than 15 dishes that someone can knock it out within 1.5 minutes per dish? In out go.
So that's what it was.
It was because obviously when you're so specialized in something, you just want to make sure, okay, I am not going to do more than 10 mise en place. Now, this 10 mise en place needs to give me at least 12 dishes to get the store rolling so I can feed the family, that sort of thing. So how do you go? So when we all talk about, like Michelin star, menu engineering, no menu engineering, if we look at it in crawl it back to the bare essentials from an Asian perspective, there is no such a thing called menu engineering. Is purely a way of survival in the most economical and efficient manner.
Do you know what I was thinking? That is amazing because you're right. If you strip it right back and you have those 10 to 12 ingredients at your bare essentials, then basically from those you can smash out another 10 dishes. It's actually a very smart system. So it goes back such a long way.
But then that also then becomes an Achilles heel because the work itself is so hard. So then when you come back to a cultural perspective is the ones that who run very successful food store would not want their kids to do it. So then they ended up really pushing the whole Asian style of foie gras, studying, stuff them.
Right.
So then they all become doctors and lawyers and everything else. And there is no one to pass on the trade because at the beginnings, the parents do not even see the work being a chef or being in the hospitality is something of a worthy career. I think this is the way that we look at it.
Mm-hmm. So then, I want to just sort of ask you, from your early childhood, you had that fantastic, because I think it's amazing, education.
I'm not sure, but anyway.
Well, I think it's cool. I think it's cool. I used to play with gas and fire when I was a kid. But I want to say, I think that is a phenomenal sort of way of educating your kids, especially when an animal is live. Also, you don't get that nowadays, do you ever? Unless you're growing up on a farm.
Okay, in my house, I tended to try to do that quite often because I like to buy like live crabs and whatever else, and trying to teach my kids how to shuck an oyster.
Yeah.
So, but
isn't that cool? I think it's amazing.
Yeah, but they look at it and say, "Mommy, I'm hungry. I'm just waiting for you to sort this thing out."
But do they take that knowledge on, though?
No.
Do they want to?
I don't. I haven't quite really probed the devil. You don't prod the devil. but the thing is, with them is taking them to Deer Fish Market.
Yeah.
Is nice. Teaching them how to look at how do you pick whether the fish is good?
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the gild, which I'm sure a lot of them won't do it because you go to Deer Fish Market and then you go in there. I always said that there's some sort of a major interior malfunction right there because dried seafood is very pungent and that needs to have a special chamber to screen that off to not let that musty smell permeate into the rest of the floor.
So for the listeners who have never been to the Dubai waterfront fish market, it is for the first time that you go in there, it's an overload sensory system because first thing that smashes you is the pungent smell. Then you go in and it's loud. Then everyone's trying to attack you by selling all these fish and you're sort of overwhelmed because there's so much going on. But I think for children, I think it's really, it's a must thing to do for kids.
It is a must thing to do, but it's just how do we make it palatable?
Yes.
And how do we want to use a more digestible manner for people to rekindle that urge to want to go to markets? Because every time when you go to Asia, everyone loves the street market. Everyone loves this and that. But ultimately then, because they like the pristine, all the veg and everything stacked up beautifully, but the guys do it here. But because they're all enclosed in this air-conditioned place, it lost a certain sense of authenticity. Because I still remember the old one, which is right next to the Park Hyatt by the,
yes.
You have the seagull coming in, pecking off the, the head that got thrown out, that sort of thing. That's what people wanted to see is you need to kind of like dumb down a bit of the pristineness.
Right, okay.
Can I put it that way?
To sort of get people more involved, if you like, or back in the sense of that.
Exactly.
So then, as a teenager, or when would you say was your sort of first foray into thinking, I want to be involved in food and hospitality?
So this is where the interesting conversation always comes in. Everyone said, well, why do you want to go into restaurant at the first place? So I remember I was 9. First time going to a slightly more fancy European restaurant. And it was next to Happy Valley, which is the Hong Kong race course in the Hong Kong island side. And that's the first time I see, the tablecloth service and stuff like that. And then you see the people coming in and out. It's all very synchronized and orchestrated where, the very typical where everyone have the tray or the plate standing next to the table, everyone serve it at the same time.
Nice.
So that got me thinking, I said, oh, this looks very interesting. And then because of mom being in the police, and she's like, right, that's it. I'm sending both you and your older sister to UK for boarding school. Amen. So that's when I become that quirky, Anglified Chinese that could be very Brit at sometimes and could be very Chinese at the same time. That sort of person. And then when I went to UK, that was like, it was a huge culture shock because...
So you were, how old, 9?
Jesus, I literally graduated primary school and just got dunked over. Boom.
And you had an older or younger sister?
I have an older sister, but obviously we weren't in the same room. And at that time it was like, Jesus, early 90s, I was in a dormitory, 4 bunk bed, sharing room with 8 other girls. My English was non-existent. When people always think that, oh yeah, well, Hong Kong's supposed to be a British colony, your English supposed to be decent. Well, no, it's not the case. May I really poignantly push that one out there. And especially when you're so young and you push into this room, and my room was a very eclectic mix of British Army's daughters. And that's when the first time I heard of the place of Abu Dhabi was when I was 12. Because at first I was like, where? Who? What? Like this. And like you literally have to go to the geography lesson, look at the globe. Where is Abu Dhabi? It is that funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
So and how long were you at the boarding school for? How many years in total?
My God, I did my whole secondary school in boarding school. And then I was down at Ashford, Kent, which was quite fun. So I suffered through the great work of the Eurostar.
Understood. I remember it well.
Yes.
Wow. So...
And Kent is a very different beast.
It's a beautiful place, though.
It is. But I was in Ashford. I wasn't in Canterbury. That's the difference. That's like the ugly little sister version.
So for anyone listening in Ashford, it's a very beautiful place.
Yes, they now got a wicked
Yeah.
designer outlet village that I go.
Yes.
And then they have that microbrewery, which is right next to the train station.
We'll have to talk about that later. So I'm just thinking about how vast your food sort of
It is.
knowledge must have been, because you had that incredible growing up in Hong Kong, wet markets, then shock into British food in the 90s, which, let's not delude ourselves, it wasn't what it is today.
Oh no, I remember the first time I tried a meat pie on the Saturday market. Oh be Jesus. Well done, Greggs. You've done a good job nowadays.
They're not a sponsor, by the way, Greg. So you graduated. That's finished. Did you go straight back to Hong Kong?
No, so this is where the funny thing is. So up to the point of GCSE, I've always had the mirage of wanting to be an engineer. Because I'm like, oh, it's so cool. There's hardly any like female engineers. Must be quite good fun. And as the thing goes on, that I'm like, really, I am not that academic. I mean, I like numbers, but I don't like it fanatic enough that, I would literally sit there and drill myself into a formula, that sort of thing.
Okay.
I like tinkling things. Now I'm sure we all know, when you're in restaurants, you go into, you see any machines, like when everyone's like, oh, it's broken. I'm like, hang on, broken where? What did you do? Let's trace back the steps. So you then become like a forensic scientist, like going back to say, how on earth did you break that blender, my friend? I'm sure you've been there, done that, right?
Yes. My dad used to be a mechanical guy. He used to fix washing machines from the scrapyard from zero.
And then the funny thing is that every single chef that I work with, they always ask me for 2 items that I always think, is it really necessary? One is a Paco Jet. The other one is a Thermomix.
Yes. You know what? Us chefs, we love those.
I know.
Like, love.
Yeah, but then us, who's the operation or who's the head of ops that having to come up with the capex and look at you guys. Really, boys? really? I said, how much money you gonna make me and how much time you gonna save? You quantify that and win me over, I will
See,
consider.
that's the engineering. That's the engineering side, right?
So how I wanted to do food and beverage was, obviously, when you're in boarding school, you get times to go out for your half term and various things. Right? So half term, obviously, we will go out to London. And then we start go to restaurants and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, this is very interesting. And then that's how the whole thing that it wasn't restaurant who caught me at my first glance. It was hotels. Because one of my uncle, who was the exec housekeeper in the Prince Hotel in Hong Kong. So obviously, every time we go home for holiday, hotels like to do all these different things. That Christmas time they have Father Christmas for the kiddos and various things. So I then get to see a little bit of the back of house, and then that's when I'm like, oh, it seems interesting. I like to talk. I like to fix things, and there's a lot of different things you can do. I mean, you can be at the front desk, you can do F&B, etc. So that was when the time that A levels, looking at what subject to pick, and that's when I say, I want to do hotel catering management. Oh my God, then it's like Armageddon in my house.
What did your mum and dad say?
My dad literally said, who the hell are you to think that I pay millions of Hong Kong dollars, put you through boarding school, and you decided to be a cook? Or you tried you tried to be your nanny, like basically go and serve people. And then I was like, okay, so it's either that, because I had two things that I've been offered a place at Newcastle. So either is hospitality. The other one was criminal forensic study. And my mom then looked at me. That subject supposedly not paid by us. Or alternatively, is you come back to Hong Kong, you get into the Hong Kong police force and get them to pay you to come back to do this type of thing. And I'm like, no. For me to come out from a cage of boarding school to go back into another cage, which was Hong Kong police force, I don't think so. And also by that time was the Hong Kong police force had the criteria of the level of Chinese language. And I'm like, dude, I've technically only studied written Chinese up to the age of 10. And then all these time has been kind of, self-taught doing here and there. You think I will be prolific enough to take, if let's say someone comes and report and you need to put the whole report in Chinese, would you think I am prolific enough to write the damn thing? I don't think so.
Okay, so what was the real turning key when your parents were, or they didn't have a choice, you just wanted to go for it?
No, because of my sister. She was the catalyst, man. Oh, she was the catalyst. So she wanted then to do fashion design. So she literally dropped the first bomb in the house.
She was the oldest.
Yes, because there's only two of us girls, so she dropped the bomb already. And my mum and dad already had that big cursing moment a couple of years back. So when I told them what I wanted to do after he said that, I'm like, this is the two options. What else you want me to do? He's like, fine, do what you want.
Oh, very good.
And then Lord and be gone. That's it.
So where did you go? What did you study?
So I first went to Westminster College. I did the HND first. And then that was quite funny. So
Westminster Kingsway?
Yeah. So basically that's where Jamie Oliver goes. And I actually got taught by the same chef lecturer when I was doing the chef module. So I still remember the day going to the chef module and you look at it, it's like, bro, why am I doing the salmon aspect for? What is the purpose of the salmon aspect?
Got to learn the basics.
Mate!
You got to learn it.
And then next minute, it's like quailing the egg. And I'm looking at it, it's like, why?
I quite love that. I love the fact that you did that. Because I wondering if I was to ask you to do it now, I'm sure you'd be able to do it.
And I will not do it.
So then, after graduation, where was your first job?
This then become a very interesting conversation. So it was just me being playful, and I was like, when you're university, where do you normally hang out? Pubs, right? You can see where this is coming down.
It's the place where all the cool kids hang. Still.
Yeah. So I was like, well, why not? Let's go and try out the pub. So what did Peggy do? Peggy then went to find this, you can call it almost one of the holy grail pubs in London. It's called the White Horse at Parsons Green, aka Slowly Pony. And the reason why that place is so famous is between the two biggest football grounds of Fulham and Chelsea.
So, were you working Saturdays and Sundays?
I was a management trainee.
Oh my God.
And it's funny because the thing is,
God.
the gentleman who runs that place, his name is Mark Dorber, still very well regarded in the beer industry because they have this particular thing, is it Karma or Kramer, whatever. You know, they have this plaque where, you know, if you are one of those top judges for ales and beer, he's one of those.
Right, okay, so he's highly regarded in the beer guide and all of that kind of stuff.
I'm not worthy, that's
Yes, yeah.
So I was actually trained under him. And it's quite fascinating because ale is not something I would drink. And then, you know, how do you manage the cellar underneath? How do you clean the kegs? How do you clean all the, you know, the pipes and everything? So I get to learn that side of the funny thing. And then it's more of the commercial because that pub turnover is phenomenal, especially during match days. My God, that place really, really, and because of it being so famous, or because of Mark being so famous, they're literally like kids coming over from Alabama or everywhere else wanting to learn about this whole beer thing. And so I ended up having colleagues who are like running, like they literally fly, because upstairs there's also the accommodation. So there's literally people flying in like for stage for like 6 months, wanting to learn how to run a pub and everything else.
And by then craft beer wasn't a big thing, but it was just coming into play. So that must have been quite fantastic to see that.
It was really funny. And then I was there for 1 year, and then after I was like, no, this is too raw. I need something more classy.
Okay. So after being involved in lots of hooligan fights in the pub,
yes,
what did you do?
I then went on to Oxo Tower.
Oh, you went to Oxo Tower.
I know.
Which restaurants?
So, because basically when I went in, I was going in as a receptionist. So then you learn to be the reservation and everything else. So you swing around between the brasserie and the restaurant.
Right.
So there isn't like a strict protocol where, okay, you're in the brasserie or you're in the restaurant, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So that's when I really get to understand revenue management.
Okay.
But from a restaurant perspective. And how do you look at maximizing the number of seatings, the turnover of the table?
Especially in a place like London, especially in a place like the Oxo Tower.
At the heydays, it was bonkers.
It's a machine.
It was bonkers. So obviously you get to learn a lot of very funny things and everything else. How to it's just because obviously it's also attached to Harvey Nichols being one of the parent of Oxo. So then there's the retail aspect, etc., the gift cards, then it's the corporate event. So you started to see all this dabble of things, which was fun.
Wow, it must have been quite eye-opening for you.
It was. I think I went from a very raw and ready to kind of have to then streamline myself back into some sort of refinement.
Yeah.
I think that's the way how I'm going to put it.
Wow. Yeah. So then what I'm particularly interested in is how you got involved in the Michelin game. Especially the fact that you worked for what I can only describe as iconic and legendary Joël Robuchon. How did that journey come about?
So, Oxo is a machine. And obviously they have such a large brigade. So obviously I was clued up to know that, you know what, it's no point for staying here any longer. Because clearly their way of running it is so systematic that there is no room for autonomy and there's no room for imagination. So I then obviously put my CV out there for the sake of putting my CV out there. And then I stumbled onto this very interesting role, which was the guest relation person, stroke the general manager PA for Tamarind. Now, for people who don't know, Tamarind is the first ethnic cuisine in Europe to receive a Michelin star. So is northern Indian cuisine, is Punjabi, and is in Mayfair. So that's when I embark on my stargazer, star chaser, whatever people want to call it, of my career. And that was a very, very interesting company because obviously of the location of where it is, being in Mayfair. First Michelin star Indian restaurant. That's when I really get to see the dabbling of, PR, restaurant PR. What, you start asking questions. Oh, okay, Michelin star. Well, what is Michelin star? How come suddenly once you receive a star, your overnight booking goes up? And then your menu price goes up. And then the various other different things from the uniform, the plates, the briefing, it's all very different because compared with the days that when I was at OXO looking at the briefing, it's about, okay, well, today we have so many covers. We have this special. Make sure we push this as wine. Today we need to achieve how much average spend per head. So it's very commercial when it was in OXO. To compare to Tamarind, it's like, we have so-and-so famous person coming in. Oh, they have a special dietary requirement, XYZ. Oh, we have this other regular so-and-so who's a left-hander. Make sure when we do the cutlery and whatever else is different. So from that commercially driven to suddenly attention to detail personalization, it was an eye-opener. And then having said that is on top of that dealing with corporate. Obviously, the corporate over at OXO is very much like much bigger group, team building dinners, etc. But the corporates, when you deal with Mayfair, these are the serious high rollers where they sit there, the wines, a special wine has to be come in. We've had very interesting VVIP where they wanted a chicken takeaway and they send a private jet over and the butler to come over just to pick up the chicken and to go back. That is some of the most expensive takeaways that I've had the pleasure to handle.
I was going to say, because for people who don't know Mayfair, it in itself, I would call it a dining city. Because you've got Michelin-starred restaurants all over the shop. You've got these sort of private boys' clubs all over the shop.
Institutions,
yeah. Some people would call them other words, but, we can't repeat them on here.
Yeah.
And you've also got very fine, I would say casual dining, high dining. So it's a myriad of things.
Yes.
But what you're talking about is the top end of dining and expenditure.
Yes.
So how long were you there for?
So I was there for 2.5 years. And then I think the biggest achievement out of that was, so obviously, Indian people love cricket. And then Lord's Cricket Ground being the Holy Grail.
The Holy Grail,
of
course.
Cricket. So this is where the interesting, at that point in time, the corporate have all the VIP boxes around Lord's Cricket Ground. And it is a coliseum to fight to be the Indian cuisine supplier to cater for these boxes. So I was part of the team to do the pitch and the bid. So that was some serious conversation. And it was great fun. It was to the point that we are not only looking at it as a food. There is a serious competitive business sense that rolls into it, which, if you look at it, and this is the question people always say, so Michelin, no Michelin, what is the difference? So this is where the difference comes in, is how do you really polish and drill down what is the USP of your brand and making sure that USP is sticking to the consumer for you to be memorable and for you or for them to feel you are worth that price tag.
Wow. That must have been amazing to learn that, to really drill down into those things. Wow. So 2.5 years.
And then after that, I was like, I think it needs to come back to the nature of our industry. When you are certain skin color and when you are certain gender, the stereotyping is ever so prominent. And that's when all these time I always said to everyone is have not worked fully in a Chinese restaurant, but I know how it fully runs. It's because I don't want it to be pigeonholed. Because at that time when Tamarind has the Michelin star, I think it was a couple of years, 1 or 2 years later, that's when Alan Yao Hakkasan got the Michelin star as well. And the amount of calls that I've been asked whether I want to join that team was, thank you. I still feel very blessed. I'm very wanted. But then I didn't want to go over because I'm like, you know what? Because once I get into a Chinese Michelin star restaurant, then they were like, okay, that's it.
And you'll stay there forever.
You just get pigeonholed.
Yeah.
So that's when the time I was like, you know what? I need the next jump. So then I went, Lord and behold, into Italian cuisine.
Didn't see that one coming, Peggy.
I know. I didn't see that one coming either. And that's when my Italian is somewhat prolific. My swear word is extremely prolific in that retrospect.
Okay, nice.
Because of being in an Italian restaurant.
I'll ask later.
No, please don't. If we want to know how prolific I was, please go and speak to Palave. While the two of us were at Host Milano this year, I have gobsmacked several Italians during the way, and she said I should have filmed you and see how gobsmacked they were. It was priceless moment.
So which restaurant in particular did you go to?
So it was part of the group where it's got a London Fine Dining. So it's got Alloro, Saffarano, Aubergine. So obviously that's where I got to know people like Marcus, Giorgio, etc. So it's within that group. So Alloro is the one that nestled right underneath the Browns Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
But then because of what I do, I get swing around between Saffarano and Alloro.
Right, okay.
So that place is a very, very interesting place. It's not quite Michelin star, but the spending is equal, if not more than Michelin star. You literally have all the big commodity moguls who goes there for lunches, for aperitivo, etc. And the average bill in that place in London at that time is very healthy. I mean, we see big bottles like Tignanello, Sassicaia, and all these like flies out. Every year when it's white truffle season, the amount of white truffle that I think we normally go through a kilo of white truffle every 4 days.
Mental. That's crazy.
And then I got to the point that I got so sick and tired of white truffle. It was like, I smell like one.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so that's when I get to see the other side of restaurants where, because I was the lady who hosts a vote for bookings, and that's when you get showered with gifts. And because they know I'm Chinese, I even get Chinese New Year pocket money from all these bosses.
Sounds quite nice.
Yes, it's the same thing, when every time people say, well, and this was a funny conversation the other day I had with a friend of mine, Barak. So Barak is now the General Secretary of LAO, which is the Concierge Association, or I call it the Gold Keys.
Yes.
And everyone don't realize the highest earner in a hotel like Dorchester is the doorman. The doorman sometimes actually earn more than the GM. And people don't realize this. They'll say, well, how? That guy just opened the stupid door.
No, but those concierges, they are like a wealth of knowledge.
Exactly. So I become then the restaurant vote key holder. So whenever the boys wanted tables, and I'm like, no, I don't have tables. Then I said, I really don't have tables, guys. It's not like, it's like, we know you have a secret stash somewhere, Peggy. I'm like, where, you want to sit on my head or something? And that's when, they would send their secretary or they send their bodyguard over with envelopes and whatever else. Yes. You name it.
Sounds like a film.
Yeah, it is. And it's like Christmas time, us girls get like Louis Vuitton bags and stuff like that. Half of the time you look at it, it's like,
my God.
So But the fun thing, the most thing I learned in the Italian restaurant was how to elevate spend. Is the art of because I was never in the game of sommelier, to be fair. I only know, hey, it's booze. We slosh it.
Nice.
It's a very Brit way, right? You never see the whole composition of, okay, well, which dish goes well. It's not the golden formula where, if it's meat, it has to go with red wine.
Mm-hmm.
There is the variation. Now, if it's white truffle, then what do you have it with it? So that's when the time that I started to learn wine, grappa, cognac. And that's when I got introduced to all these finer things like Louis XIII and whatever else there may be.
Wow. So
Yeah.
From there, you obviously learned. Because I'm just I'm seeing a pattern where you went from the pub, then the Oxo Tower, then first Michelin star, which sounds like it was a big eye opener, to then go into the Italian.
Yes, and still have the Michelin star.
Yeah.
And then after that, I did something. Everyone looked at me, think, what on earth were you smoking that day when you say yes to that? So I then went on to be the project manager to build the Punch Bowl pub for Guy Ritchie and Madonna.
Oh, wow. So this is going to take me down a completely different rabbit hole, Peggy. So I'm not going to ask about Madonna, but I am going to ask about Guy Ritchie. So, because I'm just trying to think how on earth. So how were you approached first of all?
So how I was approached at the first place was, obviously the Punch Bowl is not only Guys and Madonna; they have other shareholders. So the other shareholders was the owners of Mahiki.
Right. Mahiki is this well-to-do nightclub.
Well, the pre-Prince and Princess of Wales hangout joint. That's the way I'm going to put it that way.
Yeah, but we're talking about the one in London, not the one, obviously, that was in Dubai.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So, obviously, those guys were my regulars at the Aloro and Safarano.
Okay.
And then
so they knew you very well.
They know me very well.
Okay.
And then they know I was about to want to exit. So say, well, Pegs, what do you want to do? What have you done before? So I'm like, you know what? I just fling my CV over as anyone do.
Yeah.
And then next minute they saw, oh, but Jesus, that woman have gone and worked at Slowly Pony. So that's how that pub first job of mine landed me that job.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So you obviously got the job. Did you meet them both?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I think I need to give a bit of history. So Punch Bowl as a pub is actually a Grade 2 listed building in UK.
Right.
Because historically, if you look back, so I think somehow said that is the oldest pub existed in entire London.
Okay.
So therefore, there is a lot of the interior cannot be touched and can only bring in specialists like, historical, an antique restorer to come and do the work.
Okay. Which is a huge expense in itself.
It is. And also these guys are extremely challenging to manage because obviously they are so-called a sought-after builder in an extent, if you want to call it.
And they have to take their sweet time as well.
It's not only the sweet time, is a lot of the materials that they like.
It's very specialized.
It is. The liquor, the varnish, or whatever, it has to come from certain places.
Yes.
And obviously those places are very artisan as well. So, you have to wait for those people to turn the thing out. And then, so dealing with the timeline was stressful.
So from the time that you got the job to the time of opening, how long was that?
It took 18 months.
Okay, cool. So you opened 18 months. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you about the craziness of that 18 months because that must have been quite stressful.
It is because of the fact that because you need to balance the expectation of all shareholders.
And also, so I could imagine, and I'm just assuming, some of the shareholders obviously are operators within the business and they understand, and then other operators who may be in other lines of work will not necessarily know what it takes to build, operate. Nightmare, I can imagine.
and the licensing and various others, because obviously the neighbors next to the pub are some of the big boys and girls, like, you know, the first female QC in UK.
Right.
And at the end of the day, you're a pub. The noise control, the crowd control, dealing with
council,
dealing with the council, dealing with the bouncer,
mm-hmm.
dealing with the paparazzi.
Yes.
It was
sounds almost sounds like, you know, you would have had to call your mum at times. Mum, I just got this guy that I have to deal with. What's the best way to?
No, I think it was quite funny because obviously, just going back, because my mum and dad never quite approved my choice of career.
Right.
So there was really no way of me explaining to them my fun or trials and tribulation.
Right.
So long as they know that the daughter still exists.
Okay. So okay, fine.
That's pretty much the whole scenario. So I kind of went through the whole thing myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me, after the 18 months, how was all the openings and managing everything up until that time? Tricky.
London is a very interesting place. And luckily at that time, because of the fame of the owner, I have to say I've had the best looking team ever. I mean, they were spanking pretty, from the girls to the boys.
But did they do the job? I don't care about looks. Ops-wise, some of them do a decent job. Okay.
I wouldn't say all of them do.
And you're talking about front of house or also the chefs?
The chefs, no. The chefs are chefs at the end of the day.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't mean to be rude. Ultimately speaking, when you go into the pub, what is the pub grub that you normally have? Fish and chips,
Pies.
bangers and mash,
Yeah.
gammon fried egg.
Yeah.
You know, but a slightly more elevated version, like, you know, we have dauphinoise potatoes.
Okay. And that was the menu?
Yes. And then, you know, we have like the mushroom vol au vent.
Right, okay, got you.
So it's a slightly...
So it's pub food, but elevated.
So we would say...
We'll call it gastro bar,
exactly.
right?
So that's, I think at that point in time, that is kind of like a posh gastro pub.
Yes, I'm with you.
So I think if I look back at my journey, I seems to be hitting the spot at every single start of the trend, that sort of thing.
Because
if you want to look at it that way.
Yes, because gastropubs were the thing.
Yes.
And then ultimately it led to Tom Kerridge getting 2 Michelin stars in the first one and the only one, I think, in the world. Okay. So after the Punch Bowl with Madonna and Mr. Ritchie.
Then I got headhunted over to Robuchon.
Okay. And where and which location?
So it was the London location. So they needed someone to come in, so the title is Marketing and Communication / Business Development. Basically is, woman, you're there to get the numbers in.
Okay. So if I remember correctly, so when Robuchon came over, at the time I was working for Gordon Ramsay at Claridge's. And there was a huge buzz around the fact that was going to open, and a few of the boys actually left from Ramsay to then go to Robuchon. And did he go in at 1-star or 2-star straight away?
They go in as a 1-star straight away.
Okay, so yeah, that's it. So they go in. Everyone's buzzing about the restaurant. Beautiful food.
The counter,
yeah.
The experience,
yes.
The whole thing, yes.
How was that? Again, so going back through your journey, how was that for you when you were there managing such a big name? Because that's a serious gastronomy iconic name.
So this is where the different comes in. So the time that you look at it was when they first opened.
Yes.
When I go in, they've already traded 2 years.
Right.
And they were going through some major decision. Is they're not making the numbers.
Right.
So, as we all say, and not being stereotyping myself, you know, when you need numbers to be done right, what nationality do you bring in? You bring in either the Chinese, the Indian, or the Jews.
Okay.
So
that was the decision they made. Yes. But surely they must have also just looked at your experience and CV and gone past
No,
the nationality,
they haven't.
surely.
They haven't, because you have to look at it. I think because my GM then was a Italian gentleman,
Okay.
Venetian. So he studied in Swiss school. He was ex-F&B manager of the Metropolitan Hotel.
Right.
So he is the one who come in and literally change over the whole French thing. And I remember when I first started and how the way I still vividly, and I can swear by, if any of my ex-Robuchon colleagues who watch this, they would know exactly what I said is absolutely true. I felt like every day I was one of the main actors at Les Miserables. Is me against the world. Because you know exactly the boys are talking about you. They all speaking in French. It's like, what is this Chinese woman doing here? Blah, blah, blah. So I literally say, gentlemen, this is the P&L. This is what it looks like. I am here to turn it something else, or the door is going to get closed. The choice is you either come and work with me, or I will make you work with me. And the rest is we can go for a pint at the pub.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
So after all these issues, when was the turning point for you? And how long were you there for, first of all?
Jesus, I was there from 2009 to 2015. So I went from single to be married and had 2 kids in there.
And it was all in London?
All in London.
Wow.
And then I was part of the brain for the opening of Shanghai and Bangkok. Yeah.
Wow. So you must have seen a lot. So you did your job.
I think up to an extent Robuchon was a complete different. Can I call it a beast? Probably, because it's an international conglomerate. It rides so much on the big name of Mr. Robuchon, and at the same time, Mr. Robuchon's way of management is very different, and I actually really cherish that from a chef perspective. So if we look at the likes of now all the different chefs around the world, from Alain Ducasse to Pierre Gagné and various others, to Daniel Boulud. So Mr. Robuchon is the first person to obviously do this type of Japanese counter-style dining and really let people to see, well, what is a top whole French cuisine can still be so artistically displayed and not with the tablecloth, not with that whole stuffiness that you have to be, dressed all suited and booted. So that part that I really enjoy. The other part I really enjoy is his way of use of ingredients and his way of allowing the autonomy for the chef to shine. That's when he then developed this whole thing. He called them the champion, which is all these, I call them like the proteges, or he has like, okay, this is Chef Francois, which is his head pâtissier. Then you have Monsieur Juan, which is the maître d'hôtel, who oversee the operation standard and going around, etc., and doing all the opening, and various other, Eric Bouchenois and various others. So, and then every year every time when there is the milieu of, which is the French craftsman thing, he would actually go into all the restaurants to say, okay, this year I think you're ready for the milieu, and then he will then get his team of champions to go and coach that person to go for the competition.
Wow.
So this is one of those things that I really cherish, to see that, yes, he keep a very tight ship, and him is a very proud man. And yes, he is a control freak, and rightfully so, because when you have such a prestige product, and when with such a product you feed so many mouths and so many facet of business that is related to it, you have to keep control. But yet he still let them to have a certain level of autonomy, meaning wise is, okay, the menu du jour, the set lunch menu or whatever special, they let them run special, they let them do all these things to play with the dishes, which not every chef allows that sense of autonomy
and trust.
Exactly. But also the fact is, because the thing is, I've dined in, I would say, my God, I almost dine around so many Robuchon that obviously all the ones in Asia I've done Tokyo, I've done Taipei, I've done Macau, I've done Hong Kong, all the ones in Paris, London, New York then. Yeah. So I've done quite a lot of Robuchon around the world. And now even the great men have passed away, you know, we know who's at where. And as soon as you say you're ex-Robuchon, the chef knows. So I was like, okay, we better not mess with that mashed potato because that stupid woman will come and say something to me.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. So what a journey. So then, now we fast forward. For anyone who doesn't know, what is SPS Affinity and what is it exactly that you do within those realms?
Okay, SPS Affinity is actually the name that I didn't choose, unfortunately or fortunately. It's a company that I joined and I now happily owned it. So it started off by a few English gentlemen. Obviously, the other gentleman whom I inherited from is Mr. Martin Kubler. For the ones who don't know who Martin is a hotelier, a very eccentric German gentleman with a high dosage of English sarcasm. Yes. And then he was the gentleman who was the pre-opening and the opening hotel manager of Bonington, helped the McGettigans to bring McGettigans over from Ireland to Dubai. And then he guest lecture at Middlesex University, etc., etc. He still now, currently, still writes on the column of the Hotel and Caterer magazine. So how the whole thing started with SPS was very much they then called it the Integrated Hospitality Consultancy, where it does a bit of the social media, PR, and operation.
Right, okay.
And then I landed in Dubai and by another job, which I'm not going to go through that part. So how the way now we've molded and shaped it is we're the first Chinese specialist hospitality consultancy in the region. So we specialize in Chinese marketing strategy and Chinese social media. It's looking at how do you attract the outbound Chinese to come and dine with you, to stay with you, and how to manage all the things of, because China doesn't have Facebook, doesn't have Instagram, doesn't have WhatsApp. They have their own equivalent, like WeChat, Little Red Book, and various others. So we manage those. We analyze the statistics of that, and to tell the hoteliers or the restaurateurs to say, guys, we need to do better, etc., etc., etc. The other thing is we also do the on-ground or the offline, which is the get your hotel or your restaurant Chinese ready. Well, how do you be Chinese ready? So the first question we always say, okay, we're in Dubai. Do you accept the Chinese e-payment, Alipay? No. Okay. Do you know whether you actually currently listed in any of the Chinese online travel, like, booking.com, that sort of thing, OTAs? No. Okay. Have you thought of how to attract them? No. So that's when we peel it back in baby steps to say, okay, this is the locality of where you're at. These are where the restaurants that are close by that is as attractive to them, and this is their general rating. So if you want the Chinese to come, first of all, we need to have your menus ready. You need to be listed on the certain Chinese TripAdvisor site, and you need to be on Alipay, because Alipay also have the Google Dot to say, oh, I can see you at Mall of Emirates. So who accept Alipay in Mall of Emirates?
Okay.
And from there, they know where to spend.
All right. So I have probably 3,000 questions regarding this. Get ready. First of all, so I've been to Shanghai, love the place. The first thing that struck me was the amount of restaurants.
And the amount of people.
And amount of people. Regarding the amount of restaurants, again, from fine dining to casual dining to street food, but everybody seemed to be a hardcore foodie.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Yes.
They love
Yes.
food, right? So first things first, UAE, but if we focus in on Dubai for now, when it comes to the Chinese market, we know that the rest of the markets are very strong. They're coming in. The government are doing a great place to attract. those different segments, but specifically for the Chinese market, is it somewhere, in your opinion, that the Chinese would like to come, first of all?
They would still want to come. It's not they don't want to come. I think we need to look at it from many different factors.
But they are attracted to coming and experiencing the place.
Okay, so we need to peel it back as well. When UAE government decided to offer visa-free for China national to visit, which is back in 2015, 2016,
right,
thereabout. So there was a herds and herds of Chinese,
which is great.
So at that time, the Chinese, when they visited, it was too easy for the industry to look at them because they come in school bus, like bus and bus load. They literally buy every luxury product.
But they weren't ready. I mean, what I mean is Dubai was not ready.
They weren't ready, but it also embedded a certain misleading understanding by the industry, I would put it this way, where they think, oh, the Chinese will come, whether we promote or not promote, whether we need to for them to understand us or not understand us.
Okay.
And now we have to fast forward to 3 years of the Chinese have been at home. The domestic travel has excelled by over 250%.
Right, okay.
And the amount of international brands that has been opening hotels in China left, right, front, center. So it's like you see Sheraton here. You see Sheraton in China. China has over 200 branches of Sheraton. So they know what is the standard of that hotel. China also have Michelin stars. Well,
yes.
They have it in Guangzhou.
Everywhere.
They have it in Macau. They have it in Hong Kong. And they have it in Shanghai. And they also have their own equivalent, which is called the Black Pearl. So to us Chinese, the word called gastronomy tourism is not something that we don't know. We've known it for a long time because China has 23 provinces, okay? Each province produces different agriculture.
And it has and their own incredible history.
Exactly.
Right?
So therefore is if I am someone from Hong Kong, I'd love to go up to Sichuan to have the proper Sichuan hot pot. Because and that's the drive for me. You know, like there's certain urge, and that's what I meant by bucket list is if I want to go to Sichuan, what do I want to see? I want to see the panda. I want to have those really, really butt-kicking Sichuan hot pot and various other things. So that is a drive of gastronomy tourism. So we need to look at it as we in Asia, the word gastronomy tourism, just like hawker market, just like wet market,
yes,
it's not a new term to us. It's not a buzzword either. It's always have been there. Because there is things to drive you to. It's like, what was it the other day? If you go to Madrid now, there is still in the Guinness Book of Record the oldest restaurant in the world called Bhutan, and they only serve the crispy suckling pig and the suckling goat. I mean, the queue of Chinese going there just for that one dish. How many Chinese does that one restaurant bring to Madrid for holiday? Right?
Okay.
So as a Chinese, you go to Madrid, you go for three things. For the lads is Real Madrid.
Yeah.
For the families are the food, the churros. Actually, churros even is the second. Is the pig. And then the shopping.
All right.
Or maybe the matador, you know, seeing the bullfighting. But this is what I meant. This is what I meant by the USP from a consumer perspective that have that alluring effect that they will go back. It's not the touristic destination of the glitz and glam. It's not the attraction. It's the food.
Right.
It's the food that evolves. And this is the thing that I always said to all my hoteliers friends is, yes, if you look at the dissect of a money perspective from a revenue management of your accommodation in comparison to your F&B, accommodation will always come out more because there's less maintenance. And what I meant by the less maintenance is the fact that you are not going to change your room decoration every 3 months, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. You change it maybe once 5 years or maybe, once every 10 years. that sort of thing. And you go for the complete revamp. And when you do the revamp, you then have to do the whole relaunch party and everything else to go with it. But restaurant, we have to change every 3 months, minimum. Then is the guest chef. Oh, then is this festivity. Then is that festivity. Is how do you entice people to come in? What are the hooks to bring them in? Food is the element to bring them in. The other thing that I keep saying to everyone as well is food and beverage. Michelin star restaurant is an attainable luxury. Now, some people might not agree with what I said, but hear me out. When you go to somewhere like Aftara, which is the first Indian vegetarian restaurant, if you just go for the 16-course menu itself, it's 500 dirhams. And 16-course Michelin star restaurant, that is good value for money without considering the beverage, without considering anything else. So that in itself is attainable luxury if you are going for that. The beverage, the everything else, those are the added proposition depending on your pocket size. But that in itself, it gives people that sense of, well, what is luxury? And that luxury stays on your palate and stays on your memory. And that's the difference.
So, Peggy, as you were talking about Chinese food, your eyes lit up. So I want to sort of, because what's really striking, especially over the last 2 years, is the amount, not only that the Chinese community is here within the UAE, but the amount of restaurants and that people don't necessarily know about that are serving phenomenal Chinese food. And I don't like to call it underground because it's not underground. It's just that people don't know about it, right? But tell me about those little communities and pockets of restaurants, because this, for me, is gold.
But I think if you look at Dubai, you know, we have Mina Bazaar, we've had Karama and Umetha, which is where you go for your charts, your thing. Is where the community starts.
Yes.
They live the life in this city, shall we put it this way. So how the whole international city come about was obviously one of the Chinese gentlemen went to them and say, yes, I went to Yiwu, which is the most famous market in China. Literally is you literally have to be on a golf buggy to get through the whole damn place. It is that big. And it's the wholesale market where they sell everything from your flashing, laser beam light for your car all the way up to a machete, that sort of thing.
Right.
So that's when they started the whole idea of Dragon Mart. So, once you started Dragon Mart, you need somewhere to facilitate for the people who work there to stay. So that's where the whole international city comes up. And obviously the Chinese cluster is the closest to Dragon Mart because that's how the whole project started at the first place, right? So when you go into the Chinese cluster of international city, it is like, can we call it a mini Chinatown? Probably. It's bigger than that. There is so many different Chinese cuisine because it depending on the wave of Chinese coming in. Even nowadays, you go back to because before Dragon Mart come along, there's still a lot of Chinese trades around Banias and Knife, which is where the Gold Souk and the Old Souk is. And you have then a school of Chinese restaurant there too. And those are like the old Chinese, like right bang there. And then it's the international city. So I would say these are the two places where you really see how, when we say Dubai have over 150 nationalities, this is where you see where this 150 nationality mingles, is you see what the different food. I mean, if I go into international city now, I have the Afghan kebab next to the Chinese hand-drawn noodles. This is how interesting the food collaboration comes into play. It's not difficult to go and hunt out for food if you have the urge to hunt out for it. Now, of course, when the menu doesn't write English and you're looking in there, there's no the usual faces, people get freaked out, but you shouldn't be. Ultimately speaking is, Dubai municipality have done such a good job. if these people are able to open their shop, that means their food is okay to eat. Otherwise, they would not be granted a license to start with.
Of course.
Now, the next thing is how palatable it is. This is entirely up to your preference of the day. Because I could be one day running down to International City. I said, you know what, I quite fancy having the Afghan kebab. But then I also wanted my dim sum. So I do my own food hop generally. And my son and my daughter loves this. It's like, we go to the bubble tea place, pick up the bubble tea first, go to the restaurant, eat here, go there, come. This is how the things is done. And this is what I keep saying is there are all these pockets that needs to be, they're unsung heroes.
Yes.
And this should be, they should be spelled out. If you go to, as you said, if you go to Thailand, if you go to Singapore, or if you go to Shanghai or whatever, these are well-publicized food trails, well-publicized, and they want the visitor to go and venture. But the Achilles heel we also have is the level of economical public transport infrastructure.
Which is going to happen slowly but surely.
Yes.
So the other thing is, talking about unsung heroes, Peggy, you obviously well-versed within hospitality here. You know what's going on. Fingers in many pies, so to speak. Not literally, especially not any British pies. But you're also, I must say, you're a judge.
Yes.
And you sit on different boards, caterer, Middle East, so on and so forth. So these unsung heroes you know about.
Yes.
At the same time, these stories and pockets must be celebrated and to have these tours. So do you see that happening in the near future? Because yes, in a place like Knife, Karama, we have that already. What about in a place like International City, where it does have these hugely rich, dense populations of incredible food?
So Vaha and Afra, the sisters of Frying Pan Adventure, they've started to do it.
In International City?
Yes, they've also started to do it. However, and this is where I meant by the however, if you are a local resident of Dubai, do you find it appealing to go on such a thing as Frying Pan Adventure? So this then call up on the fellow foodie community, on our own Instagram and various others to give more awareness. I think that would be the case, because it comes to the extent where when you're a local expat to a city or a country, you immediately would fob off all these touristic stuff. It's a human nature thing, because you just think, oh, no, those are the things that is purely for tourists, it's not for me.
Right.
Or you say, you know what, when I wait for my friends and family come, then we'll try to book it. But by the time the friends and family come, they might not want to do that activity.
All right.
So you ended up not doing any of this whatsoever. But I think there is enough people that who appreciate food, who likes food, is seeing that more people to just get themselves out there. Say, you remember like at the days that they used to have this thing called Meet Up, and then like people just put on the digital notes as well. Oh, by the way, I'm doing so and so of everything. If anyone want to come and join me, and that thing seems to have faded away. But I think something like this from a foodie culture, it should continue to happen, because, and this is one of the other things that I always said when I answer to a lot of the newspaper about the GCC tourism. Gastronomy tourism is not a buzzword, but gastronomy tourism, the GDP that it comes out is way further. And there's one other thing is souvenirs. Souvenirs as a thing come hand in hand with gastronomy tourism, especially from the Chinese realms. Okay? They want to bring something back home, because this is a way how we do it. You know, when you go on a holiday, you want to bring something back home. And it's not necessarily something to use. It's food. We always find food stuff. So you ended now saying that And I swear to you, if you have the pleasure or the time to go to a certain chocolate shop at Dubai Mall at the bottom floor, they are constantly bewildered by Chinese tourists to buy the chocolate. Are they very tasty? Debatable. But are they making the money and being one of the top souvenirs of the Chinese to buy back home? Yes. And they're not even made in UAE. That's the problem. So you as a country, if you want your tourism to thrive even more, you need to have lingering items to go on.
I agree. Because it's just such a fantastic point. And the other thing is, I just want to sort of highlight is that supper clubs are massive.
Yes.
Nowadays, right?
I don't know how many times people ask me to do one, but anyway.
But it gets onto my point that a supper club, why can we not do a foodie tour supper club where you go from, as what you quite rightly said, we've got these little unsung heroes. And the point is that you go from bam, 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 but these are specific tours which are aimed at gastronomy. Anyway, I could go on and on and on and on.
But it's like similar to the thing that where Zaha did with the Dubai Eat That Bus thing.
Yes.
Where she had...
Amazing.
Yeah. So something like this is not only a TV show. Something like this should be a tour.
Correct.
But is anyone doing it? Do they see the financial proposition? I think ultimately speaking...
Well, there's two things, isn't there?
Yeah, I think ultimately it's a financial proposition.
Yes.
Now, but having said that is, okay, in Hong Kong we've had this come up, and it's actually run by the Hong Kong tourism. And it's just volunteers who are foodie who likes to take people on walking tours to go to eat or to explain about wet market. And things like this has to come out from somewhere.
Do you know, I think that's a no-brainer, because if you had you're quite right. If you had a bus, you're a tour guide, and people who want to come on, how amazing! Because the thing that Dubai Eats did with Sahar, I was thrilled by it, because you saw so many different little pockets of things, and then you had foodies come on the show.
Yeah.
So I think it's really fantastic.
Yeah.
But as a judge, then, Peggy, how do you feel that Dubai and the UAE now is generally doing in the food scene globally? Are we in there? Do people really want to come to see us?
Yes, they want to come here. They want to see us. But my question is, what's next? And my what's next is not about the next global sensation coming in.
Mm-hmm.
My next is about nurturing the talent locally.
Thank you.
And when I meant by that, obviously we have Solomon, but who's next? It's like, I love Tala Bashmi, girl power, waving the flag of Bahrain, really showcasing, well, it's not a humble dish. My humble dish can be this sexy. But how many Tala and how many Solomon? We see, okay, great, there are cookery school here. But it's the cultural barricade of accepting this industry. We go to Saudi, you go to Saudi, I go to Saudi. Does Saudi not have the raw material? No. Does Saudi not have people? Yes. But are they talent? We don't know. Are they able to get past the taboo, to learn a skill that is a lot of passion driven? Will the family say yes? This is where the biggest question mark comes in, is we look at it. Everyone keeps saying AI, 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 AI. And this is a constant conversation I have with my husband, and he hates me for it. I'm like, what you do as a financial controller, by the time it hits our kids' age, your job is redundant because the computer will do your job. Whereas your wife's job, I are very special. No one can replace me because...
It's a true story. It's a true story.
So... But what I meant by that, with what we do in hospitality industry, is the interpersonal skills, is the EQ, is the human innovative transaction in terms of from a food to the everything else that we do in restaurant. Something like this is not AI replicable thing. And now the industry could and should move on way further from, and I know everyone say that, Peggy, what you said is so haram. COVID in some way is a perfect catalyst for our industry. Because the reason why is people then see the appreciation of, oh my God, all this time, like people having it so easy, takeouts and everything. Suddenly for like the pocket of time is we're locked in, we have to buy our own food or then whatever else. That's when we see like, okay, suddenly there's more people cooking at home. People are nicer to the waiter, nicer to see the restaurants. Or they get to see a different light of hotels, etc. And this is what I meant is this industry will forever stay on. If you even peel it back to the days of the medieval, to the days of Silk Route, hotels then is no different to now. Is what is the real purpose of it? Is to give someone a dwelling, watered, fed, energized to move to the next journey, right? Of course, now we have all the luxury, the star rating, and everything else, which are the value-added proposition, if you want to put it that way.
The bloodline is still very much the same.
Yes. Now, but have we moved on to the extent where suddenly there is a shot of, humanless hotels in the world? No. Do we still see people enjoy the whole service of the Thai service coming in, the trays, beautiful orchids and everything else, the floating breakfast basket in your infinity pool? Yes. But are these type of design will come out from a machine? Well, no. Does it come out with people like you, who is the chef, or us who are the operators to say, well, what's next? If I was to go on my dream holiday, what type of service do I want? How do I want to see it? Etc., etc., etc. Tour guide, like what we said, creating bespoke tours to highlight the city. These are all human interaction. So the culture needs to surpass the fact that, oh, okay, it's not a shame for my son to now work as a chef because, yes, you have cooks at home. Fine, it's okay. Good for you. But he's cooking for something else and he's getting accolade. This is then comes into me where my mum and dad only recognize what I do when I moved to Dubai. They saw me running this food and beverage operation, having a team of 300 staff, doing a turnover of 60 million dirham. That's when they realized, oh, this is an actual career. And it took me up to the age of mid-30s for them to realize what I've been doing. And all these things that of me have worked with the celebrities, Michelin star chef, to them is irrelevant because it's a cultural taboo.
Right.
For them not to surpass that vision in understanding the potential of the industry. As chefs, front of house, sommeliers, travel, we can be as glamorous or as wealthy in earning as a lawyer, as a doctor, or a venture capitalist. It's everyone, if you have the will, and if you have groomed yourself into a true talent, you will be a talent, irregardless.
Love it. Right, Peggy. We count now to the quick fire questions. Now, I'm just trying to think. I might try and stitch you up with some more quick fire questions here.
All right, bracing myself. Here we go.
Let's rock and roll. First things first. Sweet or salty?
Salty.
Soy or fish sauce?
Soy.
This is my favourite one. Duck or sea cucumber?
Oh, Jesus, this is hard. I actually like sea cucumber better. Sorry. I know you're not going to like what I say, but yes.
From all of your experience that you had in operations, in restaurants, in Slow Pony, what was the single most funniest either kitchen or service incident that you've either witnessed or been involved in?
Oh my God, I've been involved in so many. I think the funniest one was, it was one Christmas, and I'm not going to name where. The chef was slightly intoxicated.
It was Christmas, so we might forgive that.
And then he obviously decided to wing it and asked the KP to put the turkey in the oven.
We all know where this is going.
Um,
And the KP is the kitchen porter or steward, for those of you who don't know.
and it was quite a large bird.
Right.
Yes, and bless this certain ethnic gentleman really took it by the book, as the chef said. Oh, make sure you get the syringe to put the juice back on to the bird. Well, he didn't quite understand what the word syringe means.
Right.
So then ended up, what did he do? He was very cute, and it was very cute. He literally took the bird out every time he needed the jus. He poured it into a glass bottle and showered
Oh my goodness.
with the juice.
Right. Right. Okay.
And that's not the funniest bit, was the fact that there was all the giblet still inside the bird. And you know how the way when you have UK, the giblet comes in the plastic bag.
Yes.
So the bird was beautifully cooked.
But inside?
Inside, it's got melted plastic and blood juice and everything that the baby ate.
Wow.
And then that day, we had that bird is to be served for a large corporate party for 35 people.
Okay. And when the chef checked it, I'm sure he had a lovely time.
So he tried to wing it with me. And I looked at him. I'm like, my friend, you think I didn't know what you've done? And he's like, whoa, what do you want me to do? I'm like, right, that's it. I'm taking it off your salary this month. He said, if you find an alternative. I said, of course I find a bloody alternative. So what did I do? I then went to another mate of mine. I'm like, bro, I don't suppose you have an extra bird, mate. I was like, I owe you one. I'll get you a bottle of wine. And then, he's like, yeah, you owe me one. I said, I don't need your trimmings. I don't need the stuffing. I don't need the gravy. I just need the bird. And then straight away, literally jump on the stupid black cab to swing the bird over.
In the middle of Christmas.
Yes.
Wow. That's a good one. Not heard of that before, but it's...
I'm sure you can envisage
Yes.
the juiciness.
the drama.
Yes.
Wow. Top 3 favorite cuisines.
Chinese, of course.
Mm-hmm.
French.
Yep.
Because that's where. And then, Indian. Yes.
Finally. What are your top 3 culinary heroes? Who are they? And they don't need to be chefs.
Oh, no, the first one has to be Mr. Robuchon. Mr. Robuchon is one of those guys that... I remember the first time I met him, he always speaks French, but I know he speaks English. It's like, I look at his eyes, I know he speaks English. And then the funniest story was when I was carrying my son, I was still working and he was freaked out because I was like literally like a freaking baubles, and I was in a red dress that day. It was like, okay, I have a human bauble running around Robuchon. It's not great. And then he stroked my stomach. So actually my son has the same birthday as Robuchon.
Oh, wow.
On the 7th of April, bless him. The other person in the restaurant that I think, it's hard. It's hard. There is a Chinese food critic. His name is called Choi Lan. So he's the first guy. So how he loves writing, and he's not only he loves writing food columns. So he's the very few first dabble that I read about food columns, about restaurants, etc. And he's one of those guys that is willing enough to go to farms to find this certain breed of pig
Right.
and whatever else. And he's the one who do the first so-called those gastronomic tours where people pay him like hundreds and thousands and then take them on like a 7-day hot spring tours to Japan with food and all. So he is the first one that I keep saying that it surpassed that taboo of what is food or what is the role of food critic per se.
The third one?
Oh my God, the third one is tricky, man. I don't have a third one. I think because if you look at it from yourself or myself, because we all went through so much trials and tribulation, it's almost like we think that we have to look up on ourselves first in order to get through the wanderlust of fun, joy, pain, suffer on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So if I really have to put it, I said I'll put myself on it for myself, because
Very good.
if I don't cheer myself up, I would have either turned into an alcoholic or something else.
What advice, so again, coming back to your business, what advice would you give for any chefs or foodies who are incredibly talented, they have no business acumen, but they want to open a restaurant? What's the single most important piece of advice that you would give them?
I would say alliance. What I meant by the word alliance is one hand doesn't clap. And same as a restaurant, same as any business, you need to have well coherent people to work with you. Doesn't matter when you have no business acumen, because you will always have people around you who have business acumen. So long as, and I stress the fact is, so long as you know what is your pro and what is your con, you work harder on your pro to turn it into a unique selling point. And you try to see how to subside things to that keeps going to your con per se, and then really focus on your pro. That way round, you will find the alliance who are wanting to believe in you, who has come along with you. Sometimes it's not only about the money, it's not only about the location. It's a matter of having the right group of people around you that you guys probably brainstorm, and out of the brainstorm, a friend could know a friend, and therefore they're willing to let you to try. I mean, for example, we've seen a lot of the pop-ups. Now, some of the pop-ups, these guys could be just, passionate about food. They've been feeding their friends all around, and suddenly say, oh, so-and-so has a restaurant. They don't mind having you to come over to do a pop-up. Why don't you come around?
Right.
I mean, it's like what we've seen with Gabriella with the Girl and the Goose. And then, yes, and she obviously come out with this whole supper club and now doing all these sketch chefs and various others. So this is what I meant by the fact that of the word alliance is it might not, you don't have to do the whole thing by yourself. And you cannot do the whole thing by yourself. You got to find the right people who understand you and appreciate your value so that you grow more value out of it.
And the final question, Peggy. What advice would you give to a 16-year-old Peggy Lee?
Oh my goodness. That is a hard one. What would I give myself at that time? To go back and learn more Chinese, so I could have gone and do something else. Yes.
Okay, nice. Regarding socials, if anyone wanted to get hold of you through social media, what are the best accounts for them to contact you directly?
Instagram is always good. I'm very vocal on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Generally, these two are the very easiest way to find me.
Okay.
My Instagram is as me, Peggy P. Lee. Same with the LinkedIn. But LinkedIn is actually easier. And I always say to anyone, especially in the industry, like back to your old question, is like, oh, well, Peggy, I'm a young talent. I'm looking. I always say to them, it's like, guys, please look through my Instagram. Please look through my list of contacts. If you think out of there are people you want me to introduce, I'm happy to, with the understanding that I need to understand who you are first and whether I think you are someone that I would be inclined to refer.
Right. Okay. Very good. So what I'll do is I'll put all of that in the show notes for everyone to get hold of you. Now, just a quick recap on what we've gone through. Your phenomenal memory, wet markets, the restaurant scene as a teen, England, and that's another chapter. Obviously, Robuchon experience, Madonna, Guy Ritchie. I mean, all of this is incredible. SPS Affinity, how you got into that, the Chinese market. I think some of those points were really fantastic, and I really love that. Talking about the tours, the judging, the business, biggest challenges. I mean, so we've gone through a lot. Sea cucumber, very good. I love it. Peggy, I want to say thank you. Very, very much.
Thank you.
For taking the time to come here, really discuss so many things. And I really cannot wait what you're going to do and next, because I think it's going to be phenomenal. So thank you on behalf of everybody on the Chef JKP podcast.
Yay.
We really appreciate that you've come here, and thank you very much.
Thank you.